What if someone disappeared, and for more than a month nobody knew where she was? What if her family was still hoping she would walk through the front door, while somewhere nearby she was being held against her will? And what if the people responsible were not strangers hiding in some distant place, but young men living ordinary lives? Now ask yourself one more question. How long could something like this continue before someone finally stopped it? This isn't a horror movie. It isn't fiction. This happened in Japan. Her name was Junko Furuta. She was only 17 years old, and what happened to her became one of the most disturbing criminal cases in modern Japanese history. This is the story of Junko Furuta. Before she became the subject of one of Japan's most infamous criminal cases, Junko was simply a teenager. She went to school, she worked part-time, she had friends, she had a family who expected her to come home. She had a future. Nothing about her ordinary teenage life suggested that she was about to disappear from the world she knew. But on November 25th, 1988, Junko's life changed forever. She was on her way home from work when she encountered a group of young men. One of them was Hiroshi Miyano, and within a short period of time, Junko was abducted. She was taken somewhere she never expected to be, and her family had no idea where she was. Imagine the fear of a family waiting for someone who doesn't come home. 1 hour passes, then another, then a day. But Junko wasn't simply missing. She was being held captive, and the people responsible went to extraordinary lengths to keep her location hidden. She was taken to a house in Tokyo. There, she was imprisoned against her will. Outside those walls, life continued. Cars drove past. People went to work. People went shopping. Families had dinner. The world carried on as normal, but inside that house, a 17-year-old girl was desperately hoping for a way out. And this is where the case becomes almost impossible to comprehend. Because this wasn't a single night. It wasn't a few hours. It continued for weeks. What happened during Junko's captivity was horrific. She was subjected to prolonged physical and psychological abuse. The details are extremely disturbing, and they don't need to be described graphically to understand the scale of what happened. The important fact is this: Junko was trapped for weeks. She was isolated from her family. She was denied the freedom to leave. And the people holding her continued to conceal what was happening. But there was something even more disturbing. The location wasn't some abandoned building in the middle of nowhere. It was a house in a populated area. People were nearby. The outside world was still functioning, and yet, Junko remained trapped. So ask yourself, if you heard something unusual coming from a nearby house, would you investigate? Would you assume it was nothing? Or would you realize that someone's life might depend on you paying attention? As December came to an end, Junko's condition had become extremely serious. Yet the people responsible did not seek the help she desperately needed. Instead, they continued trying to hide their crime. Then came January 4th, 1989. Junko Furuta died. She was 17 years old. Her family had been waiting for her, but she would never walk through their door again. After her death, the perpetrators attempted to conceal what they had done. They hid her remains inside a concrete-filled container, and for a short time, they believed they had hidden the evidence, but they hadn't. Police eventually began connecting the suspects to Junko's disappearance. As the investigation continued, the truth started coming apart piece by piece. Multiple young men were arrested, and investigators discovered that Junko had been held captive for weeks. The case shocked Japan, but the shock wasn't only because of the crime itself. It was because of the amount of time it had continued. Weeks. A young girl had disappeared, and the people responsible had continued living around others. That raised another haunting question. How could nobody stop it? The investigation eventually led to court, and that's where the next controversy began. The perpetrators were convicted and sentenced to prison, but the sentences triggered enormous public criticism. Many people felt that the punishment did not match the severity of what had happened. The fact that the offenders were young played an important role in the legal proceedings, and the case sparked wider discussions about juvenile crime, criminal responsibility, and whether the justice system had done enough for Junko. For the public, the question wasn't simply about prison sentences. It was about accountability. What punishment can ever feel sufficient when an innocent life has been taken. There was no answer that could bring Junko back. More than 3 decades have passed, but Junko Furuta's name has not disappeared. Because behind every headline, there is a human being. Junko wasn't a mystery. She wasn't a fictional character. She was a 17-year-old girl with a family, friends, dreams, and a future she never got to experience. And perhaps the most haunting part of her story isn't only what happened inside that house. It's the question that remains outside it. How many moments existed when someone could have helped? How many chances were there to stop the nightmare? We can never change what happened to Junko, but we can remember her, not just as the victim of a notorious crime, but as Junko Furuta, a young girl whose life mattered. This is the Mystery Vault. Every mystery leaves a trace, and sometimes the darkest mysteries are the ones that really happened.